Can you rewind?
Do it for the camera.
The story of the chi.
Okay. But a group of people and just sat down here in Chattanoogaans and said, let's start a potluck and let's just call in. It's going to get loud, just so you know. That I'll move that if it gets too loud. But they said, let's start a potluck, and in that potluck, we're just going to call people and friends in and say, hey, would you like to have a potluck every Monday night? So that's what we started doing. My personal story, I can only give you my personal story of what's happened, and I'll share so many others, because what I do is I like to tell the story of what happened, but what happened with all the people that have come, and just kind of what's evolved. So about 3 months into it, 2 months into it, I went to a couple of potlucks, but I was preparing to go to seminary at Unity. I was applying for everything that I had to do there to start at the Institute. And so my mind was really focused there. I was living in a certain house that my family had was going to help me get into. And then come January, things fell apart. The laws changed with HUD and different things where you get financing through. And all of a sudden I couldn't get it from my cousin anymore because it wasn't, they didn't allow what did they call it? They just didn't allow that, not an exemption, but whatever it was. I couldn't get the funding the way I thought I could through getting the mortgage. So I said, oh my goodness. And by this time I'm 6 months before I'm supposed to leave to go to school. And I haven't even qualified yet to get into the seminary. So I was doing all the work, preparation work, and I was having to dig way down deep in the soul. And all of a sudden, I have to move in January. So by April, I found a house. I found this house. And, probably the second day I moved into the house, it was so bizarre because this dog, Chi, I was looking for a dog to mate with that dog, and I wanted like a red merle or a black tri like her daddy is. And then so I put it out on Craigslist, and I get back this little picture of her, and it said spayed female, blah blah blah. I'm like, why did they just send me this dog? That's the most amazing looking dog I've ever seen in my life. So she came home with me that day. The next day I was out. It could have been a couple of days later, but I was just. And the weeks before that, I had been just kind of. Actually, how had it happened? I just remember sitting on this front porch, and the man next to me had passed away 2 weeks before I closed on my house. The people next door had been doing, who knows, drugs and stuff. Cops were there all the time, and it was a trouble for the whole neighborhood. It was a comfortable place to be. Anyway, they'd been evicted and they moved out, and the people right across the street were moving out, but I didn't put any of that together. I've lived in 3 other communities in my life. I'm an Ananda initiate, and not too far along in that actually, but I've carried those practices for about 20 years. And so I got to live in an ashram for a little while. They don't call it an ashram, but in Asheville. You may be familiar with the Ananda Marga yogis. So, but they're worldwide. Group that serves.
Hare Krishna.
No, it's not Hare Krishna. No, Ananda Marga. But they have in New York they have a big place. In Asheville they have a big place. But anyway, I got to learn living in community. I got to learn, what it's like living in like that kind of a community for a few months, and I had to go back home. So I had that experience. I had been in Florida in Yalaha, Florida. I lived in Florida for almost 30 years and traveled around and had a lot of experiences there. But I'd lived in the Yalaha Foundation. We created the Yalaha Network, and we worked with, a lot of people came through there. Like the people that work with, the Greg Braden types, just some other spiritual leaders, but we had hundreds of people come through there the 7 years that we were building that community. The community, we went out, we were talking in 2000. Play with me, please. Play with me. So, but anyway, a beautiful story there, a beautiful learning story about how we build communities and what works and what doesn't, and just all of the, even at that time, all of the love that that was being generated. But it seemed back then, and this was the years 2000 to about 2007, right before the downturn. And we had been out laying grids all over the eastern, like the new energy grids. Me and a team of people that led me and showed me how to do these things. And just some really beautiful things that happened before 2004 with harmonic convergence. And we actually ended up hosting, was it the Concordance or the Convergence? The second one, the 2004 one. I get them mixed up sometimes. But we ended up, that was supposed to be hosted in the pyramids in Egypt. And there were some bizarre things going on there in Egypt, so that didn't happen. So somehow it came to Yalaha, Florida, and we hosted it there. And that was a very, very powerful time. And back in those days, when you hit 1 million viewers on Yahoo, it was a pretty big thing. So back then, that's what happened. And that experience of living in that community, again, was one of the experiences. And then I tried to help another group start up more of an intentional community, and that didn't work either. Yalaha, the people in Yalaha are still there, Gunter Harold, and some of those amazing people that I learned from Lee Hanks, and there were some amazing teachers that I went there to learn integrity. You know, I've been in the world for a long time, for 35 years, learning what integrity, how we learn not to be in integrity. So I spent the next 7 years with them, just kind of learning what that is in community. And then I ended up here. I went through a real beyond a dark night of the soul for me. This is 2016, so that would have been about the year 2000, I guess. And so I got to really discover my codependence on the world and the things around me, and that took me to probably the darkest place I've ever been. And I just kept up my practices, knowing that if I could just meditate and do my prayer and stick to my spiritual truths, that I knew that no matter how dark it got, when it burst through. And that's what seems to have happened in the last year. Had an experience in July a year ago, that I got to personally get to experience what love was of the vessel that we are, the light that comes through this vessel. I got to finally understand what that was. Because in your life, sometimes people are always like, you just gotta love yourself. You just gotta love yourself. You just gotta love yourself. And you hear that your whole life, and you're like, I'm trying. How do I do that? What does it mean? And I got to have that experience, and now I can hold that experience. But what started happening after that experience was then this dog came into my life. It sounds familiar, but of course we know if dog spelled backward is God. And there's just something about the joy and love of a dog that we all understand. But this dog connected with me. That dog connected with me. And I had given her to one person that said, oh, please give her to me. And it didn't work out because she's not the kind of animal that you can... It's a bizarre story, but she's not the kind of animal that you can threaten or be ugly to. You have to move her through love. It's the only way she functions. Other than that, she shuts down and starts doing things you don't want dogs to do. Well, it didn't work for him, and then I was about a month out from late. What was that, a month? Yeah, and so I'd still been trying to find some. This community had already started, but basically, I knew back in April, so when I came, I got down on my knees in the back, and I hadn't found anybody yet to take care of the dog, and I couldn't take the dog to school. Because the dog, if I went to school, it would have cost me 3 times what it would have cost me, because I couldn't have lived on campus, I would have got an apartment, all the bills, and I wasn't going there. I wasn't doing my theological studies and my divinity studies in order to work and stay in the paradigm that I had been in to work while I was there to study. So I couldn't do that. And so I went out. I remember going to the backyard the day after I moved in and kind of just reaching out and saying, universe, God, source, I need some guidance here. Give me some guidance. And then immediately it was like, build a community. And then the next thing I got was, they will take care of her. And so in the next 90 days, we built a community. And most of the people that came, what I did is I just went to the houses here, and I got with the landlords, and I ended up, the landlord 2 doors down from me ended up being best friends with my father. I left for 30 years, and when he drove up and I finally saw him, I said, that's got to be the landlord. Because I was just, the connection, I was busy. I met him, and I shook his hand, and I said, I'm Bates Reed. Hi, how are you? And he just looked at me really funny. And that's what people do with me, because coming from here and leaving for 30 years, my dad died more than 20 years ago. And So people get confused when they're like, Bates Reed, well, you're way too young to be him. You know, but then again, I'm not too young not to be him. But, you know, he just sort of disappeared when he died, you know, and I've had people call me since I'm, but anyway, it was so cool. He ended up being the best friend, a very dear friend of my father. Ended up taking my aunt to work every day for 20 years to Blue Cross Blue Shield down here. So there was just that synchronicity, that thing that happened there. And then the man there, I just moved in, I said, listen, you know, I've got friends I would love to move into the community. At that time, I didn't know exactly who it was going to be, but I said, you know, I just moved into that house, and I would like to really build community here and farming and teach people how to do things and live more sustainably right in the city. And he said, absolutely. So within 30 days, within less than 30 days, we had that house filled, and then we had the house filled here within 45 days. And then the work really began, because I was getting ready to leave, and no one had ever lived in community in the group except me. So I was like, okay, it's time we learn how to do it. And so we just learned together. I showed them, I kind of set up a format for the way we could build community and serve, and we began the structure, and something started happening. And it happened immediately. And it was like it was like magic started happening. People started serving, and they started loving, and they just started doing for each other and giving to each other. And the most humble people I've ever lived with.
So now you have how many houses in the community?
We have 4 here. We have 4 houses here, and we've grown to a community of about 150. And we have houses everywhere now around us, and the people are just coming. They're just coming. We have the potlucks, and people are being transformed by the love of what we're doing, and it's changing lives. And it has spread now into Sequatchie County, Sequatchie Valley. We have a potluckers. The first thing that happened was one of the girls, she had no idea what had been put together, and it was going to the potluckers. It was going to the intentional communities that had been working for years to develop and design things. And a lot of times people talk. They do a lot of talking. And what I knew from my experience is you can't talk, you just have to do it. And so I just opened my house and said, let's begin this, and let's do this together. And the people were ready. And that's what's happening, is all of the people are ready. They are looking for a model. They're looking for something that they can do. And what we're finding as we build it, they're just coming. And the first one came, was a little 5-acre property up in the mountains off the grid. And she was so cute. It's one of the ladies that live here in the community. And she came to me one day at a potluck, and she hadn't been around. She's like, Bates, I gotta ask you a question. I have this beautiful property, right up off of Fallball Road, and I'm just not saying the addresses for obvious reasons. And she goes, I've got this property, and it's off the grid, and we could do something amazing there. Do you think these people would be interested in something like that? And I was like, could you hold on 1 minute? And then I just started introducing her around to everybody. And then this all started exploding. It started growing. And then people started moving in closer and closer and closer. And today that's what I've been doing, is helping another person. Somebody said, oh, I've got a house, and we'd love for y'all to have it. A lot of the properties are in foreclosure. People want us to help save them. We are learning how to work together in community to save those homes and to give people housing and to lift them up so that they can, really what it's about to me is lifting each other up in service, and saying and looking inside each other's souls and saying, how can I touch that? How can I make that real for you? How can I serve you? And now we have a whole lot of people doing that for each other, and magic's happening. And we now have partnered with communities all throughout Sequatchie County. We're moving energy back and forth. We started another potluck in Pikeville, and we have a community house there now, and we've created a bunkhouse there. I'll show you what we're creating downstairs. But we also, out of all of this has grown the Free Garden Community Project, the Tiny Home Initiative that's taken off here in Chattanooga. That's our folks helping in the middle of all that. Grow Hope, we now have a downtown, and this has all happened in 9 months. We have a place where we're growing food in the inner city, and our people sit on those boards now, and our people are just our people. They're just the people that love, and they're the people in service, and we come together once a week for a potluck and to, I guess, be in communion and say with each other and to express each other's ideas. And I went to Kansas City, and I said, "Oh my gosh!" And I didn't know what was going to happen. But Unity Village, an amazing place. It's a place where I've gathered my most recent tools. I consider, I guess, I used to be afraid to say it, but I guess I'm not afraid anymore to say these things, but I'm a mystic. And the way I gather information, the Unity, as Charles Fillmore and the things they taught well over 100 years ago, that were very, at that time, the New Thought movement moving into this part of the world, more other philosophies, other ways of being, other behavior systems. You know, the Beatles, and you know, all the things that have brought us here. It's been an amazing adventure. We now have people going between the counties, getting ready to start moving people back and forth between Chattanooga and Pikeville to start the gardens. This is all going to become gardens here. We're going to start spin farming. We're going to start feeding the neighborhood. We're going to start showing people where I was going with that. As we started the Free Garden Community Project, and we went around and we would build gardens for churches or for people in the inner cities or for someone that just wanted to learn how to do it. And then we got invited to start going to the farmers markets. And then the farmers market in Red Bank, the city commissioners showed up and said, "Oh, we've got a couple of pieces of land here. Would y'all like to head that up and show people in the city how to do this work?" And then other people from the city approached us and said, "You know, we're working on this project to do a permaculture facility that we could show off. Would y'all be interested in heading that up?" Now that's being headed up by other people. I'm not right on top of that stuff all the time because things have gotten so big I can't stay on top of everything all the time. But I do get briefed on everything on a very regular basis. And then Pikeville, we're looking, you know, at this point we're looking at helping a family save their farm. The grandmother, the son, the son, basically the grandmother is getting old, and if she dies or has to go into a nursing home, they'll lose the entire farm, just like we've heard dozens and dozens of times, and they have about 70 acres up there. So we went up, we moved in, we're going to try to save the house. It's about 6 months in arrears, but we're finding we seem to be able to go in and do this with several people. So we've gone in, we created a bunkhouse up there with people moving into the room so that we can pay the mortgage, so that we can start creating a sustainable community on top of the mountain. We have infrastructure going in at the bottom of the mountain as far as people saying we want to invest in helping people with jobs. We've created probably 15, 20, 30 businesses at this point, just out of nothing. You know, just out of love and out of the intention of serving each other. And it's just expanding, and we're creating, in the process of creating a format in order to reach around the world. And we have it. We need help with that, but we're using it. We know the people are here. We know they're ready. They're showing up exactly when they're supposed to be ready. So this will be our version of Facebook, but it's for those that are consciously seeking to build and create a new world, a new paradigm. And we want to duplicate what we're doing here, just as we know there are other pods probably doing exactly the same thing. We just haven't all connected yet. And so we want to help connect and bridge a world into a new world. Just basically a new world based on love and service rather than greed and what it's become. I think we're all tired of it. The world's tired of it, and there's enough consciousness in there. I believe last night I had an experience that leads me to believe we had a huge shift from a birthing occurred last night. On summer solstice, a birthing occurred. and these mass awakenings are occurring very quickly now, for I believe all of humanity. And I think as long as we do our work and we keep just doing what we're doing and keep expanding that thing that we are doing, that service to each other, the people just keep coming. Right now it's manageable, but barely. The people that want to friend us on Facebook, I don't know these people anymore. They're all friends of friends, but it's beautiful what's happening, and I guess that's the story. We are working on some very big projects right now, very big. And by next weekend, we hope to have some things in order that could help shift the world.
Brilliant. Thank you.
That's what we're doing. Thank you.